So I told you there are various methods for identifying an individual in forensic odontology. We discussed there are few methods which are not reliable, like visual recognition by deceased relatives or by identification of their personal belongings. Okay, but the more reliable ones, as I told you, are fingerprint analysis, the dental record or the dental examination or dental findings, and the next is your DNA analysis. Okay, so now I will try to discuss individual methods. So this is just a summary. I'll be discussing only the titles because each one is a separate chapter in forensic dentistry textbooks. Okay, so I'll try to give you an overview of what are the various findings are, so that you can go back and read about each in detail and can ask me doubts in the future. Okay, so you have conventional methods and you have the recent methods. Okay, the conventional methods are maintaining the dental records and comparison of the dental records for identification of an individual. So you all know that this is a dental chart which is almost followed universally based on either your universal tooth numbering system or your FDI system or your 2-digit Zygmunt D Palmer system. So whatever the system it might be, recording of the persons during or before their death and comparing that with the record of the deceased individual can help in identifying the individual. You can also compare the dental x-rays taken before and the dental findings of the corpse what you have it in hand as a suspect. So comparison of the dental records like this, imagine the unidentified remain of a mandible. So you can get a similar cast or a similar dental finding from his existing dental records. Then you can be almost 93% sure that the deceased individual is the person of this previous records. Okay, so that is the importance of a dental record. So you check the teeth which are present. You can see the teeth which are caries, the teeth which are replaced. Okay, the implants that are placed. Okay, the bridges that have been done, any fractures if any, comparing the pre-mortem, that is ante-mortem and post-mortem records will help to identify the individual. So this is the first one, is comparison of the existing dental records and dental imaging methodologies with the ante-mortem and post-mortem records to identify the individual. So this is the first method. The second is the bite mark analysis. So if you see, bite marks is whenever a individual bites onto some object. It can be a food item, it can be a non-living item, or sometimes most of the time in terms of abuse, usually you can find these bite marks on the deceased individual. So bite marks is nothing but the imprint of the teeth onto the opposite surface. So it can be from anything starting from a fruit to the person's body, on the skin, on the abdomen, on the thorax. Okay, you can see these fingerprints like structures created by the bite mark. That is, whenever each individual has a unique dental pattern, and based on the changes you see in the bite mark, okay, so you can predict the time of injury and you can also predict the nature of the dentition. So what happens is, so these are few pictures where can measure the size, can measure the depth, okay, to predict what will be the corresponding tooth which might have caused this problem. So this is called bite mark analysis. Okay, so based on each tooth and based on the time, you always see other findings like petechial hemorrhage. You can also see drag marks. If a tooth is onto something and it is dragged across the skin, you can see this. Okay, so this bite mark is nothing but analysis of the dental imprints on the opposite surface. It can be anything from a food object to a opposite person. Okay, so this is the next method which is called bite mark analysis. Okay, and you can see the scale. So this is called ABFO scale. It is American Board of Forensic Odontology. This scale can be used to measure the width and the dimensions of the bite marks. Okay, so what happens is, so whenever you have a bite print, you can compare and analyze and predict the size of the individual. And if in case you have a suspect, you can take an impression of that suspect, prepare a cast, and you can try to match that cast with the bite pattern. So if there is going to be a match between the cast which is prepared and the bite pattern which you identify on the individual, then you can corroborate it as a legal evidence that this person caused that bite injury on the individual. So it is very useful in identifying abuse victims, because these bite marks are usually seen in the persons who are subjected to sexual abuse or even family abuse. So this is the second method, which is bite mark analysis. First method is comparison of dental findings and dental imaging records to identify the individual. The third one is bite mark analysis. Okay. The fourth one, as I said, is using oral tissues for DNA analysis. Okay, so you can get DNA from saliva, can get DNA from blood, you can get even DNA from bone, your tooth, hair follicles, and even seminal fluid if in case of rape or sexual abuse. So all these DNAs, how do you identify that? You take the saliva, you add a lysis buffer to break down the proteins and to isolate the DNA. Then this DNA is attached to magnetic particles which are suspended along with the solution. And when you do a protein or a DNA evaluation with sequencing, what happens is the extracted DNA can be sequenced and you can genotype, electrophorese into a gel, and which can be helped to identify the individual's DNA. So with the existing DNA of the deceased, you can try to match that with the DNA samples of the suspect or a person whom you think might be the individual who is deceased. So your DNA analysis is the latest which is used, and it is highly accurate to identify the unknown individual. So the first method was comparing dental records. Second method was comparing dental images with radiographs, the OPGs, CT scans, or anything. The third one is bite mark analysis. The fourth one is analysis of DNA from the existing oral tissues. Okay. The fifth method is called cheloscopy. Chelo refers to lips. Okay. Chelos refers to lips. Scopy is refers to a study. Okay. So it is study of the lip print. So what happens is, what you do is, for the individual, you can apply a bright colored lipstick and you take an imprint of the lipstick on a wax paper or a butter paper. And with this, you can see carefully that each lip has a unique pattern. It can be vertical, it can be branched, it can be horizontal and vertical intermixed together like a meshwork. It can have deep grooves, it can have pits. Okay, each individual has a different lip print. So it is very helpful to narrow down your search based on the pattern of the lip print. What you can see, there are many studies that has been done to identify how the pattern of the lips match with the individual. Okay, so this is called cheloscopy. Cheloscopy is nothing but study of lip prints. There is another method which is called rugoscopy. As you know, rugae are the grooves what you see in the anterior palate. Okay, and this groove pattern is unique to each individual. Okay, so it was done almost 100 years ago by a Spanish investigator, where they identified different patterns of rugae. Okay, it can be wavy, it can be curved, it can be straight, it can be circular, okay, or it can be unified with each other. So based on these patterns, you can identify the deceased individual. If they have a good antemortem cast is available, you can try to match the pattern of the rugae with the cast which is available with the dentist in order to identify the individual. So the conventional methods, as I told you, the first one is comparing dental records, antemortem and postmortem. 2, comparing the radiographs, that is done antemortem and postmortem. 3, bite mark analysis. Okay. 4 is DNA analysis from the samples taken from the saliva, the tooth. Okay. 5, cheloscopy, which is study of lip prints. Okay. 6, rugoscopy, which is study of Ruge patterns. Okay. So these are the conventional methods which you must know. There are many recent concepts which have been used, that is called facial reconstruction. So facial reconstruction is when you have a skeletonized remain, you try to project, try to imagine what the person individually might be, and you reconstruct the face based on the existing measurements of the skull base, the skull vault, okay, based on the size of the maxilla, size of the mandible, based on the muscle imprints, based on the size of the grooves, you can approximately predict what will be the face of the individual. So this can be done manually using a modeling clay, or it can also be used digitally using software. Okay. The other recent concept is identifying the individual based on their dentures. So the recent dentures come with either their enrollment number, or they are like our Aadhaar number. Okay. Or they even have a QR code imprinted onto the denture, which can be helpful to trace the individual if in case the denture is identified at the sign of crime. Okay. So this is a manual method where they take the skull, they take the measurement. So each one, this marker measures the thickness of the muscle, the thickness of the skin, which will be over there. So okay, with that markers, you try to build up modeling clay over the face so that you will get a rough replica of what the person might be. So this is a mode of facial reconstruction with a modeling clay. Or else recently what you do is you use digital technology with a software which can predict the approximate thickness, and it builds up the muscles based on the data which is fed into the program, and you can regenerate the face, and you can add extra details like your hair, your eyes, your eyebrows, your eyelashes, the skin tone, all can be done based on the prediction of the for investigating person. But it is always difficult to reproduce the color of the eye and what is the hairstyle of the individual. But what happens is, with digital technology, it is very easy to superimpose the existing photographs or past videos of the individual onto the available skull, so that you can reconstruct the face in a proper way. Okay. The two more recent methods which have been used to identify a deceased individual, one is called a comparison microscope, where you can compare the suspected sample with an existing sample simultaneously at the same time. So this is called a comparison microscope, where you can see two different objects at the same field, so that you can compare the features of one against the features of the other. So this is the recent trend which is called comparison microscope. And after I told you, a conventional method is cheloscopy, which is study of lip print, rugoscopy, which is study of Ruge pattern. The recent methodology is to study tongue prints. Tongue prints means the grooves, the fissures, okay, the pits, what you see on the tongue. Now they have proved that these tongue prints are also extremely unique for each individual, and these tongue prints can be matched to identify a person positively. So these are the four recent concepts or some recent methodologies which are used. So one is facial reconstruction manually by clay or digitally using software. That is facial reconstruction, one method. The second method is denture identification with the markings that are given on the denture. 3, comparison microscopy. 4, tongue prints. Okay. So what are the methods? As I told you, the first one, comparison of dental records between the ante-mortem and post-mortem data. 2, comparison of dental radiographs, ante-mortem and post-mortem. 3, DNA analysis from oral samples, saliva samples, or even from the tooth. 4, you do what is called cheloscopy. Cheloscopy is study of lip prints. 5, rugoscopy, study of Ruge prints. Then you do facial reconstruction with clay or digital software. 6, denture identification with markers which are given on the denture. 7, you see comparison microscopy, where you can compare two features at the same time. The last one is tongue prints, which you examine the grooves or the patterns what are present to identify the deceased individual. So these are the some of a summary of the methods which have been used to identify a unknown individual. Okay, so then to do these methods you need an armamentarium. Armamentarium is like for an extraction, what are the things you need, for a filling, what all things you need. Similarly, for a forensic investigation, there are few things which are mandatory. Okay, so this can be classified as in-house kit, which is used indoor, or a field kit, which is used in the site of the crime scene or a disaster. Okay, you have an in-house kit which you use indoors, and you have a field kit which is done in the outside. Based on the application, you have three kits. One is called a functional kit, which is used for real time or real forensic cases and for research. You have a display kit or a demo kit which is used for teaching purpose. Then you also have a training kit which you use for the students to learn how to use these tools. So you have an in-house kit, you have a field kit, you have a functional kit, a display or a demo kit, and a training kit. Okay, so based on the proposed armamentarium, it should have these 5 components essentially. So these 5 components are an investigative kit, an illumination kit, a PPE, personal protection equipment kit, a documentation kit, and a craniofacial anthropology kit. So investigative kit is to examine the deceased site. Illumination to illuminate the structures and see. Personal protection, if in case it's going to be a decomposed or a risky site, you should protect yourself from an unknown danger. And you need a documentation kit to note down the findings, and you need a craniofacial anthropology kit to examine the bones which are available at the site. Okay, so these are the few basic instruments which you may need as a part of a forensic odontology kit. Okay, starting from your mirrors, your elevators. Okay, you have the curettes. Okay, you also have eye protective here, you have headlights, you have magnification loops, you have the charts, gloves, mask, okay, impression trays. Okay, you have the wooden scalpels, you have the plastic spoons to take the DNA samples, you have label pouches to document your evidence. Okay, all these are needed. You also need forceps to collect the sample, to measure the sample. Okay, so this is something like a forensic chart with which you can measure the evidence what you are collecting. It can help to scrape through the corpse to identify and collect the relevant material. You also use, this is called a Minnesota retractor, which is very helpful in cases of complete spasm and it's very difficult to open the mouth of a corpse. So this retractor can be used to gain access. Okay, you also can use plastic lip retractors to examine the teeth. You can use a mold mouth prop to stretch open the corpse. You can also use a rubber mouth prop to keep the mouth open in order to complete your investigations. Okay, and you also do trans illumination to check if in case the mouth opening is not completely possible. You can use these trans illumination to identify and note down your dental records. So is that clear? So with this, today's chapter, the portion is complete. So we have discussed what is forensic odontology. We saw what are the changes that happens to a body after the life is lost. Then we have seen what are the reliable methods for identification, what are the non-reliable methods for identification. Then we have seen the various concepts or various methodologies which you use to identify an individual, and we also seen what are all the armamentarium that are present to identify the individual. In the next class, we will try to compare the evidence which are got from post-mortem with the existing antemortem records. How do you establish the identity of an individual? We will be discussing that in the next class on Saturday. Okay, so any doubts? If you have any doubts, you can ask me in chat.
No, sir. Hello.
Okay, then